You're listening to the Vikes Verified podcast. Welcome back, Vikings Nation. We are live with episode 109 of the Vikes Verified podcast, live from Cub Studios out here in Stillwater, presented by Pull Tab Sports. Matt, and the Vikings take a crushing defeat, 27-9, at a neutral site in Glendale, Arizona, State Farm Stadium. Let's have a quick moment of silence for the Vikings 2024 season.
Oh, man, how many times can we go through this experience, man? Just 2 years ago, we were in a similar situation, a very successful regular season. And I think even, if you look at the two years ago, we had that kind of point differential where people were calling us frauds, a lot of close one-score win games. And this year it felt a little bit different just due to us having a little bit more impact throughout the regular season, not squeaking by so much. But at the end of the day, you get the same result in the first round as a favorite. We have now lost 2 consecutive times. Kevin O'Connell is 0-2 in the playoffs, and Justin Jefferson is still searching for his first playoff win. It really pains me to say all these things, and man, are we due for some good luck in terms of playoff wins and vibes, and we just can't seem to get it. So, it's unfortunate. I know all Vikings fans are struggling, but me and Nick will try to, break down kind of what went wrong and how we can try to spin zone this into positive outlook moving forward.
Yeah, I'm down for that, Matt. We got quite a few things to cover on this episode, everything from the game to what things look like moving forward for this team. Going to be a lot of turnover on this roster. I'll get started with that. That is no secret. But, what hurts me the most in this playoff loss, Matt, like you said, this is a very strong regular season team. But what hurt the most to me was how healthy this team was come playoff time. There's one preferred starter that wasn't on the field for us, obviously a very important one in Christian Darrisaw, but you look at the rest of the team, and every star was available in this game, and we ran a very strong group of players out on the field, and not able to execute, outclassed by Sean McVay and his staff, to be blatantly honest. And there's a lot of finger pointing in Vikings Nation. This is on Darnold, this is on Kevin, this is on the defense. The truth is it's a combination of many things. And the tough thing is you build such a good culture in the Minnesota Vikings locker room, and we do have that. But, unfortunately, that great culture can only take you so far in the playoffs, and it comes down to execution. It comes down to game planning, and it comes down to effort. And, the Vikings didn't do enough to get this done, Matt. I want to talk about some key points in the game, things that were frustrating to watch, things that were maybe a little bit encouraging to watch. But what a terrible time for, Sam to get his coldest 2 performances of the year. The 2 most important games, coming off such an emotional loss last week to the Detroit Lions. And you look at the LA Rams, rested all their starters in week 17. And guess what? They came out extremely fresh. They came out flying to the football. That is one of the better young defenses in the National Football League. And it felt like from the jump, Matt, 28 yards to Nakua on the first play, one of the easiest first drives I've seen from an opposing team in the playoffs. This one felt like it was getting away from us very quickly.
Yeah, just from the beginning, like you said, the game flipped upside down on us so fast. And while there's a couple things that I think Vikings fans would like to have back in terms of some calls and some unfavorable plays, the reality was, we just didn't seem to have the energy. And as the game went on and they got that fast start, it seemed like whatever energy we did had evaporated very quickly. And, before we knew it, we're down 3 scores going into half and really they were probably looking at each other in the locker room confused and asking the same question, how does this happen? I think for me, over these last 2 weeks, I've been more disappointed in the offense than the defense. Now, obviously, defense has given up some points, but in both games, if you look at it, even in this Rams game, gave up an early touchdown, but that defense did find a way to kind of bounce back and get the Vikings the ball back a few times in that first half. But the offense, once again, was unable to sustain anything, get anything more than 3 points. And that's just not going to cut it in big-time games. Playoff football, you have to find a way to convert, put touchdowns on the board. And over these last 2 weeks, the offense just seemed to crumble, between a mixture of Sam Darnold regressing in his play, the offensive line, specifically the interior, somewhat collapsing. And just at when we needed it most, we did not have it. And that's what's most concerning to me is we got to find a way, moving forward to really step up in those moments because, I want to say 16, 17 days ago, we were celebrating dousing water for Sam Darnold, and now we're looking at each other, wondering what happened. So life moves at you fast, and the Vikings need to move even faster, finding a way to take that next level in terms of, getting to the next step in the playoffs and getting a win under their belt.
Yep, and Matt, 6 sacks in the first half for the LA Rams. That is the most sacks in an NFL game in the first half since 1988. And unfortunately, Minnesota had to be on the blunt end of that record. The Rams 9 sacks total. I mean, you can pull up a lot of plays on film from this game where there were open receivers. A lot of people want to question the play calling in this. To me, it's tough to keep your eyes down the field when you have 3 guys in your face coming up the middle, A and B gaps. It was really tough for Sam, and he's been so good escaping the pocket all year. It felt like the Rams took a blueprint from Aaron Glenn and the Lions defense and just tried to gas him up and contain him in the pocket, and they did just that. It led to Sam holding the ball over 4.5 seconds on 5 of those 9 sacks. So really tough to see the indecisiveness. Like you said, it was so confident, so easy for him to hit his reads all throughout the regular season. And then, he started getting a little bit off with his technique. You had mentioned the feet got a little happy in the pocket. He started missing some easy throws for as talented as a guy he is. He makes those throws 10 times out of 10 every practice. So just tough to see when the lights come on, not able to execute, nearly close to the way we wanted to. Tried to make it a point to run the football in this game, and I think it was there. We were moving the football once again. Cam Akers comes in with a couple big carries. Aaron 13 for 48, averaging about 4 a carry. But you have to get away from it when you get down so quick. And it felt like in the third quarter when we started to try to establish a run, it was already too late by that point.
It was way too late.
The sense of urgency from this offense was really tough to see. How about we break down those 4 to 5 critical plays in this game that really swung momentum? I want to start first and foremost with the Matthew Stafford fumble, intentional grounding, whatever it may have been. Blake Cashman scoop and score on Matthew Stafford, what looked like a very sure fumble at every level of football. Head down, not looking at the receiver. Looked like the ball just kind of fell out of his hand more than it was a throwing attempt. To have such a big play to tie the game up at 10, and then have New York call in, take that play away, and have to run your defense back on the field and get a stop, that was an emotional dagger in my eyes, because you go from an all-time high of celebrating a touchdown, tying the game, we got the defensive turnover we needed, to now we got to dig our feet in again, and it's 2nd and 10. We couldn't even get an intentional grounding call there. Just a shame to see that happen in a big game like this, and it's going to be funny when they get this rule under review this offseason and things maybe change a little bit. What were your thoughts on that play overall and kind of how it affected the sails on the Viking ship?
Yeah, it's the play I'm most upset about from the whole game. I thought that was the biggest momentum swing in terms of going from a 10-3 where the game was at 10-3 to potentially tying the game to then not even getting an intentional grounding was just an absurd way for that play to end. To me, I understand Puka was in the area, but his head was down looking at the ground. So, one, I think that's a fumble, in my opinion, just with him kind of just flailing it out and barely getting it above, waist level. But then the other thing is, the word intentional grounding is literally in it. There was no intent if his face is towards the ground, and the way he threw it I thought was just pathetic, how they were able to not only reverse that but not call the penalty, and that in my eyes was just a huge momentum swing for them, and we just weren't really able to bounce back from that. And another one that I'm flabbergasted by was Kamu potential block punt. I still don't know to this day, to this moment, how it got past him without even nicking him, but for some odd reason he gets all the way to the punter and somehow does not even get a fingertip on the ball. Those are the little things that you just need, some of those plays to go your way, and we did not get it on the 4th and 1. We get called for an offsides. If you look back at the replay, Puka is setting him up by fidgeting his feet and should have been on the offense. So obviously we've had some of those calls go our way in the regular season, but throughout these last 2 weeks, the biggest plays in the games, I felt like we got none of them, and that's why we're sitting here talking about the end of the season and what could have been. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I mean, the Grugier Hill block punt, you get Matt Daniels scheming up a perfect block, perfect opportunity, clean lane. That play seemed to defy physics, the way that it just dipped right underneath his elbow. Punter gets a clean punt away, and Kamu's left wondering how in the hell he didn't even get a hand on the ball. Those are the kind of things in the playoffs, Matt. Completely change a game, and we were just on the short end of the stick on every single one of those game-defining plays. And, TJ Hawkinson made a great catch over the middle. I'm glad we were able to at least put a touchdown on the board, and it was nice to see him pull away 5 catches for 64 yards. Strong performance from him. But, it was tough going against a veteran quarterback of Matthew Stafford's caliber. And you look at the personnel of the Vikings defense. What really bothered me, this team was scared to play press man coverage in a lot of situations. And you saw how that burnt us, playing zone. A player like Stafford, receivers like Nakua, Kupp, Higbee early in the game before he left, they're going to find those soft spots in the zone. That's easy money for them if they get the protection to pick zone coverage apart. And it felt like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. We have an opportunity to put some pressure on, and, we play 9 yards of cushion man coverage, giving up easy out routes, easy curl routes to Nakua. Nakua's 6'3", 225. I really don't like Stephon Gilmore's chances of tackling him in the open field short of the sticks. And sure enough, he was dragging players for 3 to 5 yards after every catch. And that's something that comes with personnel. And I hate to say it, but we had 2 guys on the roster this offseason that we're built to fit that mold, and we'll get Mekhi Blackmon back next year, and I think that's going to be a positive step in the right direction. But this secondary wasn't built to play tight man coverage, and it really got exposed specifically by Detroit and LA.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it during the game. I was screaming at the TV to stop playing zone coverage. I'm so tired of seeing us get exposed really through Detroit, and then the Rams, they were really doing whatever they wanted to. And the first play was a great example, 28 yards, just an absolute dart, and really, just soft zone. And a lot of it is just due to the shape of this cornerback room and the age and where these guys are at. This offseason is going to be huge, like you had mentioned, getting Blackmon back, but I also think, you need to go sign a pretty big-time free agent corner and potentially draft one early in the draft. So I think you're going to see a lot of shake-up in the cornerback department room and hopefully get to a more press man scheme that I think Flores wants to implement, but has not been able to these past 2 years just due to the personnel on the team. And, while we're talking about the secondary, I think another big area that's going to be something that the Vikings look at is the safety position. We've got Cam Bynum, who is up for potential extension with us, and he has stated that he wants to stay here, that he loves it here. I think most fans would tend to agree that they want to keep Cam Bynum here. But at the end of the day, it's a business. It's going to come down to what are you willing to accept, and can we make this work? So personally, I think we are going to find a way to keep Cam back. The one I'm more interested to watch, and Byron Murphy, I did not mention. I think we do re-sign both those guys. The one that's very up in the air is obviously Harrison Smith. He molded last offseason, ended up coming back. I still think he's got a year in him personally. I think he showed enough on the field, and I'm a little bit biased. 40. But I do think he can provide enough on the field as well as a huge presence in the locker room, similar to a guy in Terrence Newman. I think maybe you find a way to decrease his snaps a little bit, but he provides too much value in terms of that locker room and culture that if he's even thinking about it, I think you got to find a way. But to me, Nick, how do you see this secondary kind of shaping up with 3 big decisions looming with key starters?
Yeah, I thought you hit it. I mean, the one area that I maybe disagree with you is I believe it's going to be a choice between Byron Murphy and Cam Bynum. I believe both these guys have played themselves into a pretty big market value, and I have a hard time believing their agents are just going to fold over and take less money because these guys want to stay with a specific team. Cam Bynum already said, I'm going to let my agent handle the negotiations. Well, imagine being a sports agent, Matt. Are you going to take less money because Cam just said he likes being there? I mean, that's just not how the business works. I don't see team-friendly deals going down when these guys played themselves into top free agency at safety and cornerback. I believe personally that it's a choice between the 2 of them. We keep one of them. However, it's not out of the question to re-sign both. Now, as for Harrison Smith, just guts me to see Harrison Smith go through all these years as a Viking and have postseason opportunities and just really never being able to give him a taste of anything more than a 38-7 loss in the NFC Championship to Philadelphia. And I know he's been a part of some special moments, but players with that kind of loyalty, with that kind of mark that they've made on an organization, to not really be able to get them even a taste of what you play the game for, and that's to play in the biggest game and, have a chance at winning a championship. So for me, I believe Harrison Smith produced well enough on the field to come back next year. Like you said, that's going to be a personal decision he has to make. Coming up on 34 years old, his body is not feeling nearly the same as it did over the last decade. And, we'll see how healthy he gets this offseason. But we're certainly going to probably leave the door open for him. Now, looking behind those two, you look at Theo Jackson, a guy that I think is probably going to have his opportunity to start next year. I think that's plain and simple. He's going to get opportunities, and I also think Jay Ward may also get a few opportunities in the secondary. It's not going to be the same exact secondary. Maybe Shaq Griffin comes back. I have a hard time believing Gilmore's back. So it's going to be a reworked room, and ultimately you have to get younger at the safety position. And as much as we love Harrison Smith, he's got, unfortunately, 2 wins in the playoffs in his career, which is just brutal to say. Brutal to say. 13th season, by the way, for the Vikings. And obviously we want the best for him. He's in Vikings immortality forever, Ring of Honor player. But we'll see if he can do one more. He's going to take some time off and make his decision probably later this offseason. Other things that need to be addressed on this team, Matt, I got a question for you. We hit a home run in free agency last year with Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, 2 very high-end performers for us. Van Ginkel, second-team All-Pro. Jonathan Grenard, Pro Bowler, All-Pro snub. Probably should have been the second linebacker as well on that All-Pro second team. But Dallas Turner, a guy that we sacrificed draft capital for to go up and get in this draft, first-round pick, played 8 snaps in our biggest game of the year against the LA Rams. And the entire league now wants to label him as a bust because he's not playing. They don't understand he's behind 2 high-caliber guys that are in their prime. Dallas Turner's still only 21 years old. What is your opinion on that situation as a whole? And obviously with Grenard and Van Ginkel in our future plans, how are we going to find ways to incorporate Turner and get him on the field? You don't want to drop him back to inside backer. You want to play him at his natural position. So it comes down to, we spent capital to go get this guy because we had a vision for what he could be in our defense. How do we bring that vision into fruition?
Yeah, it's a great question. To me, I'm not worried about him quite yet. He is 21 years old, right? Him and Jared Verse had swapped jerseys at the end of the game. Jared Verse is 24. Now, obviously, that's not an excuse for Dallas Turner, but I think that goes to show that there's still some room for him to grow, and he's still a very young player overall in the NFL. And I saw, flashes, and that's what I think is encouraging. I think he needs to refine some of his technique, and obviously, I think kind of come into his own as an NFL player in terms of what that takes on a daily effort, weekly, offseason, all this stuff. I think, he's starting to kind of learn and will get better at. To me, it's going to be, like I mentioned, I don't think many people could have predicted how well Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel played. Obviously, they're going to be impact additions, but to play at that caliber, both being Pro Bowlers, I don't think many people saw that happening. So to me, with that being the case, you got to find a way next year to not only develop Dallas Turner, but find exotic ways to get him on the field in more consistent packages because he's too good of a player, too athletic to not have on the field. And I think, it's not a bad problem to have. Having 2 really good pass rushers, potentially a third that's got an uber amount of athleticism, and the sky is the limit, really. I think that's a good problem to have. I think, Flores is going to get a better idea of how he can utilize Dallas Turner and how he can kind of implement some things for him. But to me, we just got to find a way to get him on the field more. But I think a lot is going to come down to Dallas really getting his stuff lined up on his end. And I think Flores will then, and that staff will find a way to kind of unleash that. I think there's still more to be unlocked in that game.
Yeah, and you certainly hope so. I just think a guy drafted in the first round, obviously he's great for depth. If one of either Van Ginkel or Grenard couldn't play every game next year, he's obviously thrust immediately into the role. But to me, a guy that you spend that capital on, and like you said, athletic ability, he's got to be playing over 50% of defensive snaps. 8 snaps in a playoff game, to me, this is a fresh young kid who's ready to go make a play. Yep. He's ready to get after a 37-year-old quarterback. You know what I mean? 8 snaps didn't sit right with me. I know these guys have been fantastic, but even if they get a little bit gassed, you got to find ways to get him in more consistently. So one last thing I want to touch on, Matt, and this is just it's glaringly obvious to a majority of Vikings fans, but you watch like a team like Philadelphia, a team like Kansas City Chiefs, championship caliber teams that see the championship games and Super Bowl games. These teams dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. This is something that the Vikings struggle with mightily. It seems like we always have top-end skill position talent and really good secondary talent, linebacker talent, but we don't consistently dominate the front. And it shows in this game. You watch the Eagles, they can play a bad game, Matt. They can throw the ball, get A.J. Brown 3 catches, Devontae Smith not involved. They still find a way to win the game because they dominate the line of scrimmage consistently and can always run the ball on you. Kansas City Chiefs, same way. One of the best O-lines in the league. They consistently invest in it, and that is the heartbeat of a football team. You look at our interior. Granted, Blake Brandel played great alongside Christian Darrisaw early in the year. Really fell off when Cam Robinson came in. We know our opinions on Bradbury. I think he's good at some things, but ultimately gives up too many pressures. And then you look at the right guard spot with Dalton Reisner. Just simply wasn't good enough. And I want to name a few names from Vikings past that may come back to haunt you, but it seems like this interior of the offensive line, where the money is made on the goal line, where the money is made on 3rd and short, 4th and short. We've got names like Joe Berger, Nick Easton, Pat Elflein, Dakota Dozier, Mike Remmers, Tom Compton, Alex Boone, Brandon Fusco. This is the part of the Vikings that has been neglected for the past 20 years. Since Steve Hutchinson, we have not had a dominant guard. And these kind of things come into play in the postseason when you're playing stacked defensive fronts like Philadelphia, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, All-Pro. I mean, these guys, I feel like, would have feasted on us if we were to go to Philadelphia next week. So, to me, you got to really address these things this offseason, and it can no longer be taken lightly. Winning on the line of scrimmage is how the Vikings are going to make postseason runs in the future. And with that, let's transition, Matt, into our Duke Cannon studs and duds of the year. Duke Cannon, are you a hard worker? Then you need a soap that works just as hard as you do. Look no further than Duke Cannon and their seasonal selections. Trophy Game, Buck Moon, Candy Corn. Grab yourself Duke Cannon's big-ass brick of soap today. Try it for yourself and climb aboard the Duke Cannon train. It truly is the best in men's hair care, beard care. You're going to be looking sharp. You're going to be feeling better. Nothing's going to itch anymore. Smell like you give a damn with Duke Cannon. Work harder, smell better. Check them out at dukecannon.com. All right, Matt. 2 studs of the year. I'll go ahead and start us off.
Okay.
And this is a tough one. You took what would have been my 2, by the way.
Yep.
But I'm going to start with Aaron Jones.
Lose.
And Aaron Jones, not necessarily the most productive season we've ever seen, but Aaron Jones set a career high this season in rushing yards, if you can believe that. Since 2017, he's been in the league. This was the most rushing yards he's had in a season, and it was simply because he played in every game this year. And if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that Aaron Jones, a guy with injury trouble in the past, was going to play every game this season, I would have told you fantastic. And he proved to be a big-time difference maker. I do not know what the future holds for him with this team, but I'll always be appreciative of this season because of the way he battled through injury, kept rolling, and bounced back from adversity all year. And my second start of the season is going to be Jonathan Grenard, the biggest all-pro snub in the NFL to me this year. This guy went from an above-average edge player in Houston, took a little bit of a chance paying him the money we did, and boy, did he pan out. This guy's got a work ethic. He is scary in the backfield for opposing offenses, had a heck of a season, led the NFL in pressures, led the NFL in QB hurries. I cannot say enough about Jonathan Grenard and the effort that he put forward this year.
All right. Those are 2 great picks there. All right. I'll get you mine here. Oh, there's so many good options to pick from, but like Nick said, these 2 are pretty obvious. My first stud of the year is going to be Andrew Van Ginkel. I mean, not only does he look like the mascot, he played at an all-pro level. This guy was a stud, and it's a great thing that we have him back next year. He's a guy that's definitely going to be up for extension talks moving through this offseason and early into next year, as I believe he only signed a 2-year, $20 million deal. I think both sides are going to want to find a way to keep each other or to keep working with each other, so expect that to rise throughout this offseason. But shout out to Van Gink, man. The Ginkster was awesome. A great addition to this team. My second stud of the year is going to go to Blake Cash Money Cashman. This guy, hometown guy, comes back home and just balls out. He was such a critical piece to this defense, specifically in the coverage game. But he himself, stayed relatively healthy throughout the whole year. He had a couple games where he missed, and you could feel that impact when he was gone. So I think that speaks volumes in terms of his impact on this team, and he's another guy that's going to be around and part of this core, and I'm very excited to see what he can do moving forward, and I see him continue. I expect to see him continue to rise as a leader on this defense as we move forward.
Agree with you. Let's move to the hard one. Duds of the season. Why don't you start us off?
All right, these are two guys that we expected to do a little bit more this year and just didn't get it done. I'll start us off here. The first one is Ty Chandler. Man, was I excited for Chandler going into the season. I thought he would really be that number 2 running back paired with Jones and would, find that role that I felt like we all thought that he could fill, and for whatever reason just couldn't get it done. And then, you see a guy, Cam Akers, come into town and completely overtake that role. Akers was a massive part of this run game on the second half of the season, and I think, moving forward, I think I would not be surprised to see both Akers and Chandler back, especially since Chandler's still on his rookie deal. But again, a guy in Ty who's got so much explosiveness has just not been able to put it together. I'm hoping that this offseason, maybe he can find that whatever's missing from his game to become an impact player. Second dud of the year is going to go to none other than Ed Ingram. The former second-round pick was benched midway through the year for Dalton Reisner, and unfortunately has not lived up to that billing in the draft and kind of his potential. I still think that he's a good player to have on the line as a backup, but to me, he has not shown enough to give him that starting position back, and at the most, you got to have him compete for a job next year, but need to see more out of Ingram and more consistency from his game to get off this duds list.
Yep, I like it, and I couldn't agree more. I'm going to move to mine, and this first one's going to be a surprise, and, it pains me to even say this. I think that a majority of this was due to usage, and I'm going to have to say Minnesota native C.J. Ham for a couple reasons. C.J. Ham, I think, is a guy I've been saying all year could solve a lot of our short distance problems, at least giving him touches. I can't even remember a touch that he got since he fumbled in week 1 against the Giants. I mean, we did not use C.J. at all. It felt like the only time he was of use on the field is when we're in shotgun, bring him in as a pass protector alongside Sam Darnold. I just was really bummed out by the lack of usage, and for that reason, he lands on the dud list. He's a guy that always is going to give high effort. We know that, and we love C.J. Ham. He's a Vikings legend, but I just think it's ridiculous to not give this guy some carries. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, even 2nd and 1. Like, what's the point of having a dominant fullback like him and playing him the snaps you do if you're never going to give him the football? So, to me, I just think we can get more out of C.J. Ham, and for that reason, he's on the list. And the second one's going to be Cam Robinson. And, I thought Cam Robinson was a good addition. I thought this front office made a sharp play going out and getting a guy to potentially make a run. And this is a guy that was graded near the middle of the league when we got him from Jacksonville. He's an average tackle with good size. Well, in the last 2 games of the year, Cam Robinson gave up 21 pressures in 2 games. 9 and 10 plus in the second one. So it was like you had a Band-Aid at left tackle, and to me, that Band-Aid just peeled off at the end of the season, and we weren't able to get anything close to Christian Darrisaw, and it was exposed by opposing defenses. So overall, I liked the intent of the addition. I think it was a smart thing to do, but at the end of the day, it hurt us in those last 2 games, the amount of pressures that he gave up. With that, we're going to move into our Cub Foods Captain of the Year, Matt. Cub Foods. It's officially winter playoff season in the NFL. Unfortunately, the Vikings are out of it, but if you're still having people over for the divisional round, the conference championships, why scurry around town and pick up all your game day needs when you can just go to one store? Go to Cub Foods, grab your hamburgers, hot dogs, pizzas, chips, veggie platters, everything you need all in one place, and be sure to hit up Cub Liquor on the way out. Grab some cocktails for you and the crew, and support your local Cub on your next shopping trip for all your essentials this winter. Check them out at cubfoods.com and in person at any Cub Foods location. All right, Matt, my Cub Food Cub Foods Captain of the Year. Why don't you drop yours first, because I really like your pick.
All right, I will get us started here. This guy, nobody expect him to be on the roster. Nobody expect him to make a few big plays throughout the season, and that is none other than Bo Richter. This guy we are big fans of him in the offseason. We got him on the pod. We knew that he had a good chance of making the roster, and he was an unknown product, and he did just that. And he got to a point where he was leading the team out of the locker room onto the field. I think this guy is going to continue to see his role increase. Matt Daniels even said it, that he's shown a lot in practice, and he's the type of guy that is going to continue to see more reps, and I expect to see a more prominent pass rush role for him next season, similar to maybe in a guy in Patrick Jones who may or may not be in purple and gold next year. So keep an eye out for Bo Richter, but shout out to not only serving for this nation, but for being the Cub Foods Captain of the Year.
Absolutely. The Richter scale continues to rise. Shout out to Bo. Great season, 98. All right, mine, this is tough for me because I did name Jonathan Grenard a Duke Cannon Stud of the Year, but I can't help but also mention him as a co-captain of the year. I've got another one, but Jonathan Grenard does not wear the C for the Vikings, but I can guarantee you he's going to be a captain next year. If one of these captain spots free up, Jonathan Grenard is going to be looked to be a leader on this team. He has a voice in the locker room, and he backs it up with his play on the field every single week. Did not miss a game, and simply balled out. Stayed healthy and balled out all year. My second one, a little bit more under the radar, a guy that played his role well all year, and I thought he should have got the nod for special teams Pro Bowler, but simply didn't, and that was Trent Sherfield. Not a guy who lights up the stat sheet. I mean, he's behind Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Naylor. You know, he's got a lot of depth in front of him, but every time he was on the field, he seemed to make an impact play. Run blocking, special teams, downing punts inside the 10. Loved the effort from Trent Sherfield. These are the kind of glue guys that keep a culture solid. Not guys that complain about the lack of reps they're getting, but the guys that make an impact every time they get an opportunity. Shout out to Trent Sherfield.
Those are some real great guys to have on this team and guys that we're very excited about to move into next season. Now, before me and Nick get into some offseason discussions and what we may see unfold over the next few weeks and months, the Vikes Verified podcast is sponsored by Drip Drop. Are you looking to stay hydrated during your busy, active day? Meet Drip Drop. It provides rapid hydration, the drink that's as hardworking as you are. Packed with the perfect blend of electrolytes and glucose, Drip Drop helps you rehydrate quickly and efficiently so you can keep pushing forward without missing a beat. Don't just drink water. Get the rapid hydration you need with Drip Drop, and go use code PULLTAB for 20% off your order.
Alrighty, Matt. Moving forward, let's address the main position under the spotlight for the Minnesota Vikings. And just 2 weeks ago, we were writing articles about what Sam Darnold's contract structure will look like with us. Potentially tag and trade, potentially tag and keep. Well, as new information is out there, you know, evaluations evolve, and that's simply what happened. Sam Darnold basically got an opportunity to play 2 playoff games for this team. I would consider Week 17 versus Detroit a playoff atmosphere, 100%. A playoff game. And guess what? It was when it mattered most, his 2 worst games of the season, I believe, plummeting his value in the free agent market and also making us really think twice about keeping Sam Darnold in the building. Now, I'll give you my take, and then I want yours afterwards. There was no bigger Darnold voucher than me throughout the regular season. I loved what I saw from him, the quiet leadership. I like a quarterback that's stoic, doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, just goes out there and makes plays. And Sam sure looked decisive all year long, and I really enjoyed his escapability out of the pocket. It was very refreshing to see a mobile Vikings quarterback that was also accurate, unlike Josh Dobbs. But at the end of the season, when it matters most, the Minnesota Vikings should only care about postseason success. And unfortunately, Darnold is not a necessity to re-sign for me. I think there's plenty of teams that are looking for regular season success, and Sam Darnold proved that he can do that this year. There's a lot of teams that haven't made the playoffs in a long time, haven't won a division in a long time, that I think will be after Sam Darnold. To me, you need to stick with your original plan of taking advantage of the rookie QB contract and moving to J.J. McCarthy next season. Now, depending on readiness, we try to get Daniel Jones on a similar deal, maybe a 1-year 10 if he signs that. Very similar to Sam Darnold's deal. And maybe Daniel Jones doesn't start week 1. Maybe he does. But I think that this team needs to take advantage of the nearly $80 million in cap space they will have, solidify this roster, and go with the original plan, which was made very clear: ride the rookie contract and develop a rookie into a great player.
Yeah, I would lean that we need to stick with that plan of rolling with J.J. McCarthy and obviously, building around that. But I think where things are at right now, I'm going to hold off on putting a concrete decision on one side or the other. I think this is going to be a fascinating situation to watch unfold. What I do know is that Darnold's last 2 games has definitely hindered his, somewhat negotiation leverage that he had going into that game in Detroit, where the number kept rising from 25 million to 30 to 40 to 50s. Every week that we kept moving on, you kept hearing that number jump up by 5 or 10 million, and now all of a sudden he loses 2 games and people are back down into the 25-30 range. So so much really volatility in all of this. It just feels like, to us, it's you need to stick with your guns. You drafted J.J. McCarthy. One would think that you need to roll with him and then get a guy like you had said, Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo, some other backup QB to kind of fill that Darnold-type contract. But at the end of the day, Darnold did play himself into these conversations. He made it not only an easy decision, but one that they're going to be going back and forth about on how they want to move forward. So to me, there's going to be a lot to see how they kind of interact with him over these next coming weeks and what rumors go out. Mm-hmm. Not only do we need to figure out Sam Darnold, we need to figure out Kevin O'Connell, and there's been a ton of kind of BS rumors, I believe, going out from his agent, who is trying to kind of put the Vikings in a corner, per se, to get that contract done. I don't see a way where Kevin O'Connell does not stay the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, and if he leaves, I think it'd be one of the worst decisions that we could make as a franchise that I could think of, personally, just knowing what he's done. I know he hasn't won a playoff game, but I truly believe in Kevin O'Connell. I think he is the right guy for this job, and I do believe that they are going to find a way to keep him in Minnesota long term. Nick, how do you see that situation unfolding with Kevin O'Connell and these recent rumors being released?
Well, I just don't really want to believe the rumors of tension between him and the Wilfs because he wasn't extended before last season. I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to sit up here and buy that right now. I think Kevin O'Connell, obviously what he says publicly versus what things look like behind the scenes are different. I understand that. But Kevin O'Connell is a leader for this organization. He's a coach that's not afraid to take blame and put blame on himself. You see a lot of coaches throughout the National Football League start to blame players, start to blame coaches. Kevin O'Connell takes it on the chin like a real leader does. And he's not only a player's coach, he's a coach that gets respect from his team, and he does not have to ask for it because of his presence, because of the way he handles himself, because of the level that he knows the game at. You're absolutely right. Losing Kevin O'Connell would be detrimental to the development of this franchise. And there's a lot of teams that would love to have him. I understand that. But Kevin O'Connell is going to be with the Vikings, and his contract expires after the 2025 season. So let's not get caught up in the smoke. He's still with us, and we're going to get that deal done. I can almost guarantee you that. I want to talk to you a little bit about potential destinations for Sam Darnold. Let's just name a couple. Mm-hmm. Like we said, we don't want to get too deep into this, but 2 scenarios I could see off the top of my head. First and foremost, the Cleveland Browns. Obviously not a franchise that quarterbacks are looking to go to or, excited about it. I mean, they'll be excited about the opportunity, but it's typically a QB graveyard. You see what happened to Deshaun Watson. Whatever happened on and off the field, he tore his Achilles, and he's now re-ruptured that same Achilles after surgery. They desperately need a quarterback. They will not roll out Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Jameis Winston as the starter next year. I see potentially former Vikings coach Kevin Stefanski going after Sam Darnold, something in the range of a 2-year, $60 million deal. That's my first fit. My second one, there's a lot of smoke right now with Cam Ward, Miami Hurricanes QB, going to Tennessee. My take is that I believe Tennessee will try to take the best available player in the draft, which is Travis Hunter, and trade or sign Sam Darnold this offseason as their quarterback. A lot of people think they're going quarterback. I don't think they necessarily have the resources to confidently develop a rookie. I think Sam Darnold is now kind of hitting the peak of his career. He proved his production this year. To me, it makes sense to go get the most dynamic player in the draft and then pair him with Sam Darnold. Those are my 2 takes and 2 destinations as of this moment.
I'll give you two more. One that I think is an option, and the only reason I maybe hesitate from it is just them not having a very offensive head coach, but that's Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they're definitely going to be in the market for a QB and willing to pay a guy like Darnold. But my question is, does Darnold want to go to a team that maybe has a more defensive-minded head coach? I don't think so. A sleeper team that I think could be interesting is the San Francisco 49ers. They have a big decision to make with Brock Purdy and whether they're going to re-sign him. I would lean yes, but if for some reason they do not sign him to a contract extension, I think that opens up a huge door for Sam Darnold to reunite with Kyle Shanahan, being a similar offense. And I'm sure the 49ers would rather pony up the money to pay Darnold than maybe what they have to pay Purdy. It's going to be a very interesting decision for them, but that's a sleeper team that I think people need to keep an eye on in terms of who could be going for Darnold's services.
100%, and you see the Niners and how much of a different situation they're in than us. So that window that the Niners just had for the last 4 years with Purdy, that's now the beginning of our window. So they're at the point where they now have to pay the quarterback. We're at the point where we've got the guy ready to go, loaded up, and we have talent around him. So looking forward to seeing the decision either way. Obviously, we'll be able to get behind it. These are two very talented guys we're talking about, and two guys that I would love to see lead the franchise. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about more positions of need, Matt. And we made it pretty obvious earlier, but looking at the interior D-line, I'll start with that. Obviously, we had the emergence of Jalen Redmond this year. That was nice to see. He's a little bit of an undersized guy, but he kind of popped out in a big way this year. I think Jonathan Bullard is probably about done for us. He's a pending free agent this year. I'd be surprised to see Bullard back. I thought he was a good run stopper in a lot of scenarios, but just wasn't really explosive at all getting after the quarterback. I think they're going to look for more youth there. Obviously, we did draft Levi Drake Rodriguez as well. They're hoping that we get some development there from number 50 in the middle. That would be great to see. But other than that, I was pounding the table last year for Tavondre Sweat out of Texas. A big body. We need a big physical dude in the middle. You see the Eagles with Jalen Carter, the Chiefs with Chris Jones. It makes a difference when you got a guy in the middle. And we think back to two of our favorite Vikings of all time, the Williams Wall, Kevin and Pat Williams. That's how you stuff teams in the playoffs. And, I think the Vikings are going to make it a priority to go get a guy like that.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Harrison Phillips. Obviously, he's back in town. Hopefully, Levi Drake takes that next step. I think Redmond should be back. And then also, I think one that's very interesting to watch is going to be Jerry Tillery, what they do with him. But no denying we need a bigger, more run-stuffing defensive tackle. All the most successful teams have that on their team. I expect this front office to really target the trenches on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. You've got to find a way to get a little bit bigger, a little bit more, brute, and apply your presence more than we have these past few seasons. As we have mentioned, the inconsistencies, specifically in the interior O-line. I expect that this, Kwesi and KOC are really going to put a heavy emphasis on finding a way to, reverse that moving forward. Now, a couple other positions I need, obviously, is going to be cornerback with most likely Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, and potentially Byron Murphy all leaving. Going to be plenty of room for snaps there. We had mentioned the interior O-line. That's another big one. And then safety. I think those four positions are the big ones that this team is going to have to address in the offseason. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they kind of choose to attack that through the draft and free agency. Yeah. Nick, before I get to our last question here, do you have any other positions that you think, need to be highlighted?
Yeah, I do. But before I get into that, I want to play a game with you here quickly. And the game is going to be start, cut, or backup. And I'm going to name some players on our interior O-line. I hope you're ready. Starting with Blake Brandel, start, cut, or backup?
I'm going to say start because you probably got to put the money into center and the other guard position. So,
and we do have him on the
Brandel
deal.
Has the 3-year pretty favorable deal. I'm going to say start, and they fill the other two positions.
Okay, moving over to Garrett Bradbury. Start, cut, or backup?
Cut. I appreciate Bradbury for what he's done and the things that he's provided, but at the end of the day, he is not big enough. We've seen Dexter Lawrence, multiple other defensive tackles work him over, and I think we've seen that story unfold too many times now. I think we got to get a bigger guy in there, at least try something different this year. So I expect him to potentially be a cut candidate.
Okay, and moving over to Dalton Reisner, it would be start, let walk, or backup.
I'm going to say backup. I do think that they're maybe going to try to find a different guard to start, whether that's left or right. But Dalton's a guy I think that provided solid enough play, even though it wasn't, maybe high end per se. I think he's definitely a guy you want to keep around. He seems to be a good morale guy, could definitely fill in a position of need. So to me, I'd like to keep him around as at least a backup.
Okay, and the fourth one going to be Ed Ingram, your dud of the year. Start Ed, backup, or cut?
With keeping Reisner around, I know Ed Ingram's a more recent draft pick, obviously, but I have to say I'd cut him. It saves you about $3.8 million. I think if you can do that and allocate that money elsewhere, I don't think that's a bad decision. So to me, he would have to be on the cut list just as he has not lived up to the billing of a second-round pick. Now, I am going to flip it back on you, Nick, and ask you some questions about some coordinators. But before we do that, the Vikes Verified podcast is sponsored by Stoli Vodka. Are you looking for a vodka that stands out in every way? Stoli Vodka is a premium spirit that's been crafted with care and passion for over 80 years. Made from the finest ingredients and distilled to perfection, Stoli offers a smooth, clean taste that's perfect for any occasion. So whether you're shaking up cocktails or sipping it neat, Stoli's bold, crisp flavor shines through in every glass. So next time you're looking for a vodka that delivers, reach for Stoli, bold, classic, timeless. The best.
Love it. Alrighty, Matt. You want to talk coordinators? Before we get into that, you asked me one more position of potential need for the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm going to lay it out for you. It is running back, and I think it's a very underrated need for this team. You talked about the lack of production with Ty Chandler. I'm not saying it's impossible for Ty Chandler, but as of right now, he's not a focal point in our running back room. Aaron Jones was the starter on a 2-year deal technically, but it looked like it was more of a 1-year deal, prove-it deal. I don't know if Aaron Jones will be back with this team. He's going to be 31 years old. I will say right now, I think we got pretty lucky having him play every game this year. If you look at the course of his career up to this point, he's a tremendous locker room guy, tremendous leader. I don't think there's anyone that's played with or been around Aaron Jones that has had something bad to say about the guy. He is a true leader, but we don't know his future. And, with this 2025 running back class, Matt, there is an enormous amount of opportunity for the Vikings to snag a high-end player anywhere from the 2nd to 6th round. There is so much talent in this running back class. Granted, the Vikings only have 4 picks. I think we'll do some things to maybe coop a couple of those back, get to 5 or 6 picks. But I'm going to just read off some of these guys, Matt. Ashton Genty, we all know about him. He was my Heisman winner. I thought he was well-deserving. Incredible season out of Boise State. He is going to be a first-round pick, no question. Then we look at Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, another great prospect, 6 foot, 220. He's going to run fast. We saw him early season. We went and watched Gophers, North Carolina, and boy, was he impressive running the ball. Then we've got Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. This guy is a machine, 6 foot, 230, runs the ball with power as an Iowa Hawkeye should. And then we've got Dylan Sampson, Tennessee, Jordan James, Oregon, both guys from Ohio State, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. And then you look at Devin Neal out of Kansas too. I mean, Cam Scatabo, a guy put together an incredible season. There is so much opportunity here for the Vikings to snag a young, tough running back that can be a major piece for us moving forward. I think Cam Akers is going to be on the roster to stay. My thoughts on Cam Akers. I think he's incredible. He's 25 years old. I think there's plenty of Vikings football ahead for him in the future, but I would not mind pairing Cam Akers with one of these young backs in the 2025 draft.
Yeah, I'm all on board with getting a running back in this draft. I've been saying that it's such a deep class, as you had mentioned, and I think, I love what AJ did for us, but I just don't know if we bring a guy in Akers back and potentially draft a running back, if there's really room or meaningful role that he's going to want to play. So to me, I really want to get our hands on a rookie running back, try to provide some electricity into that room, and then bring a guy like Cam Akers back. And I think it's in a good spot moving into next year. But before we end here, Nick, I want to finish with one question here, and this is more of a basket question for you. I'm going to list off 4 coordinators who have been at least requested to be interviewed for their respective coordinator positions or a general front office position. And that is Ryan Grigson with the Jets, Grant Udinski with the Seahawks, Josh McCown with the Jets, and Brian Flores with the Jaguars. Jets, and the Bears. These guys all have opportunities to potentially leave. If you had to pick one out of those 4 that could leave, who do you see as most realistic and why?
Ooh, that's a great question, Matt. Ryan Grigson, GM of the Colts from 2012 to 2016, prime Andrew Luck years. Didn't love the way that he managed that roster, and I think a lot of Indianapolis Colts fans would agree with me. Granted, guys grow from situations like that, and Grigson is 52 years old. He's in a position now where he's seen a very functional, high-end front office, and I think there's certainly opportunity that he could leave. He has the experience, and I think he's going to get better from, like I said, that Colts situation. Udinski got that Seattle OC interview. I think he's a guy that is so tight with Kevin O'Connell. I think if he doesn't get that Seattle OC job or interview and get a different one, I think he stays with the team. Now, Josh McCown is interesting because, like you said, to keep Udinski, you've got to keep promoting him, right?
Yeah.
And McCown being the head quarterback's coach, I think he's going to be very sought after this year because he played a big role in Sam Darnold's confidence. You saw all the mic'd up moments of Josh McCown. I mean, he's a good leader. He's a well put together guy. Played a long time in the league. He's seen it all at the quarterback position. I see McCown getting an opportunity elsewhere. That's my personal opinion. And I think you move Grant Udinski right into his role, have him be the head quarterback's coach for J.J. McCarthy. I think they have a good relationship. And Brian Flores, to me personally, I don't see him getting a head coaching job this cycle. That's my opinion. I don't think there's any particular reason. I think he's obviously qualified. But I just think that for the teams that have head coach openings, you've kind of heard all the names that are being bounced around already. Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, Mike McCarthy. It's a competitive market. There's a lot of guys that have their name in the hat. And with Brian Flores' current situation, I just think that he's going to stick around as the Minnesota Vikings D coordinator.
And I would love that because, not only would that bring some stability, but I think, he's got such a special connection with this unit that he's a guy that I want to try to keep around as long as possible.
And give him another year to help craft the personnel he wants, right?
Exactly.
He was able to do a little bit of that this year and get versatile chess pieces in Grenard, Van Ginkel, Cashman, guys that he wanted. Now let him do the same thing in the secondary. He inherited Byron Murphy, Cam Bynum, Harrison Smith. You know what I mean? Let him put some guys in that secondary that he believes fit his scheme the best. Now, I'm not saying clean house back there, but I'm saying let Flores, start to piece together the personnel that he wants, because it was very obvious that the personnel that we had wasn't able to get it done in the postseason because they were very one-dimensional, very zone coverage secondary. So, to me, I like the continuity, like you always say. If you can keep these guys together and let them kind of craft their own project, which is this roster, I think that it only gets stronger year after year.
I agree. We have really highlighted a lot of things that are going to evolve over the next coming weeks and months, but as the season ends, there's so much more to come. We are going to be providing you scouting, free agency predictions. You name it this offseason, we're going to be covering it. We're going to be providing you insights and everything. So stay tuned for this ride. It is far from over. I think we're moving. This ship is moving in the right direction. Now we just need to retool and rebuild going into next season. But it is going to be exciting times this offseason as many things are left to be, finished and unfolded.
Yeah, and I agree, Matt. Things you can do as a Vikings fan, you got to look forward to the next season. And, I don't want to have this mentality. This was a tremendous chance for us to break in these playoffs and make a run. Like I said, we had a healthy roster to do it. We had guys playing at a high level. Simply didn't get it done, and that's the National Football League. It's a humbling league, even for the best teams. I'm confident that this leadership will be able to break through at some point. And like you said, I think the glaring holes in this roster were exposed in our final 2 losses of the season. I think this coaching staff and front office is really going to learn from those mistakes and where they need to improve. So, as always, I'm not going to be the guy that sits here and say, "Hey, we weren't even supposed to be here. We were supposed to be a 6-win team." No, we had an opportunity in front of us, and we were built to win now, but we simply didn't do it. So, what can we do? We can look forward to the future and realize that this is a baby step league. This is a league where a lot of teams, it takes years to break through, but as long as you're headed in the right direction, which we believe we are with this leadership, the opportunity is going to be there for you down the road. So I guess as we've said, losses like this will only make it that much sweeter when that day comes, Matt. So this is the Vikes Verified Podcast, live from Stillwater and Pull Tab Sports. I'm Nick Eliason. This is Matt Mead. We are going to be locking in with you all offseason, and we can't wait for the ride. As always, stay positive and look forward to the future. Skol Vikes.
Amor Fati. Skol.
You're listening to the Vikes Verified Podcast.